What's up, guys? So, I made it. I made it through my surgery just fine. I am now sans an organ, but I'm feeling a lot better today, and I feel like it's time to get back to it with the making of the videos. While I was indisposed, I managed to play a lot of games, but I also really got to thinking about my collection that's back in that closet there, and how I have a lot of stuff that is not properly out on the shelves, not properly displayed. It was time to sit down and really try and figure out how I was going to make things actually look good. And naturally, as I've discussed on the channel before, the answer is game cases. But realizing how many of them I actually need made me decide that I was going to sit down and try and figure out how to do it myself to save some money. Like, you can go with something like custom game cases or Stone Age Gamer sells cases or the Bitbox or whatever. There's plenty of options for you to have pre-made cases. The art's already done, it's already cut, it's ready for you to put your game in it and put it on the shelf. But I have almost every N64 game. I want to get cases for most of them. I have a lot of Game Boy games. I have a lot of loose Super Nintendo games. I have a lot of loose Genesis games. So it's really not going to be cost effective for me to pay somebody else to make all of these cases when I could potentially find and make them myself. And that's one of the things I started doing while I was recovering. So that's the project I've been working on, and I want to walk you guys through the process kind of making your own game cases. So if you're like me and that's the route you want to go, you can have your games properly displayed on your shelves. Well, the first thing we got to do is find the cover art. So let's bring you to the desktop and let's get started. Alrighty, gang, the first thing that you're going to want to do whenever you're actually trying to make your own game cases is you need some cover art. And luckily there's a very, very good resource for this already existing online. It's called the Cover Project. If you've never heard about this, it is a very, very large database where people have gone in and made replacement cover art for a lot of different games for so many different consoles. If you're needing NES games, they've got an entire database here of, I can't say all because there's probably not all of the games are here, but there's a good many of the games that you're ever going to want here. Let's say I want to make a case for Mega Man 4. And so we go to the M's, go down our list until we find what we're looking for. Mega Man 4. All right, well, we got a few different options here, as you can see. We've got the PAL cover, we've got all the retail covers and the custom covers. The system that I use has the little spine element that shows which console that it was for. So this specifically would be the cover that I would want to print out. But we're not doing Mega Man 4 today. We are actually going to be doing the GBA game Tales of Fantasia. So with Game Boy games specifically, a lot of people have taken to using cassette cases for Game Boy games. So to have a specific aesthetic of like cassette tapes up on the wall or on their shelves. So you have two options here. This is for a DS case. This one here is for a Nintendo DS case, or you have the custom cover here for a cassette tape. So pick your poison, whichever one you like, to whichever visual on your shelf you plan to go to. I personally use the DS cases, or sort of. I use cases that are shaped exactly like DS cases. We'll go over those in a little bit. Once you get it downloaded, you can open it up, and these are actually sized correctly for a specific case that you're trying to use. Again, I'm using a DS case. But one problem that I have is that I have a bunch already done because I bought some from custom game cases, but now that I have a lot more to do, I'm going to just save some money and make my own. But on the Cover Project, they only have this style with the black Game Boy Advance logo spine here. I don't want that. I want this to be silver. So you have to go into your photo editor of choice. I personally use Procreate on the iPad. It's the one I'm the most familiar with and know how to use, but whatever photo editing software you are comfortable with, you will need to go in and change this if the cover isn't quite what you want it to look like. So in Procreate, I went ahead and made, do I have it loaded up? I thought I did. Oh yeah. In Procreate, I went ahead and changed it out to where it has the silver spine element here. So that way on my shelf, it will be consistent with the other cases that I've printed. So now we can just go ahead and hit print. And we're gonna jump over to the printer real quick before we go over printer settings, because there's something important that I need y'all to be aware of. Now for this job, it is definitely recommended to do this on an inkjet printer. An inkjet printer does a much better job of getting the lines clean, and it just tends to give a better overall vibrant picture. But having said that, I definitely don't recommend doing this on a regular cartridge inkjet printer. Ink cartridges are very expensive and they really don't have that much ink in them. So you doing this, you can see how colorful some of these cover arts can be. Printing just a few of these is going to run through your ink cartridges very quickly. Epson here has their EcoTank series. I think Canon has a tank series as well, to where you can actually buy bottles of liquid ink to fill these up with. Not only is one of these bottles cheaper than an ink cartridge, you can get so many more prints per bottle than you can an ink cartridge. The only negative is that you have to buy 4 bottles of ink to fully fill up your tank printer. 4 bottles of ink is still pretty significantly cheaper than buying 2 sets of black and color cartridges. You're gonna run through those cartridges dang near immediately if you start trying to do this with a normal cartridge inkjet printer. So definitely recommend an ink tank printer. The Epson EcoTank 2903 is the one I have, and it's done a fantastic job so far. But now that we've covered the little bit about what kind of printer you should be using, whenever you go into your print settings, you need to pick whatever printer it is that you plan to use that you have. You need to tell it which paper size you plan to have. So you're going to need legal size paper for this job, at least for most of the cases that you'd want to print. You might could get away with regular letter size paper, A4, 8.5 by 11. You might could get away with it with these Game Boy Advance DS cases. But as you can see, the margin at the top and the bottom is actually quite small. So if your printer doesn't allow you to print that close to the edge of the paper, then there's a chance that it just won't print the entire image. But if you use 8.5 by 14, which is legal paper, then you have a lot of margin at the top and bottom to work with, and it will print exactly the way you expect it to. Again, these cases, this art from the cover project is sized for these cases. So you need to, in your print size, you need to scale it to 100%. So that way the image is the exact size the image is. It's not trying to scale it a little bigger. It's not trying to make it smaller. It needs to be 100%. So that way it is the exact size that it is intended to be. And if you're using whatever photo editing software to make your own case artwork, then you just need to know what size it needs to print at, so you can set your canvas size in your editor to whatever it needs to be. And then that way you can still print 100% whenever you come to actually print it. Now, we'll show the difference here in a minute, but there are different paper types. You can print with just plain printer paper. It will work just fine, but I find the colors look a little bit better if you use photo paper. And photo paper it's a little more expensive. The kind I found that I like is about $15 for 100 sheets. So it's a bit more expensive than just going to Walmart and buying a ream of regular printer paper, but the result, in my opinion, is very much worth it. And I'll show you that result here in a minute. I will print this twice, both on plain paper and on my photo semi-gloss paper, which is what I have, and let you see the difference. So you choose your printer, your paper size, your paper type, and your quality. I always like to go best quality, just so that way it looks as good as it can. And your scaling, you are ready to hit print. And then once you hit print, it sends it off to the printer and starts the process. Now, whenever you get the paper off the printer, as soon as it finishes, you really are going to want to let that thing dry for a little while. Since it's on photo paper, just sit it somewhere where it's not going to get hurt. Just not too long, maybe 5-10 minutes. just somewhere so that way it can the ink can fully set up before we start cutting at it. So once you get it printed, you've given it a little time to dry, it's time to actually cut it. Now there's a few options for cutting it. You can use plain old scissors if you feel your hands are steady enough. Mine certainly are not. So we're not gonna do that option. The best option is probably one of these guillotine cutters. They're gonna give you the cleanest cut, the cleanest edge, and they're gonna be the easiest to line up to make sure you get the cut exactly where you want it to be. But they can be a little expensive and they're not something that you can just go find at your local Walmart. So what I have and what we're gonna be doing today is using one of these slide cutters. Now mine is from Cricut. But there's plenty of different brands, there's plenty of different versions of this that you can get. The only important thing that matters is that it is big enough to accommodate your longest cut. For us, that's gonna be along this edge here, and this goes up to, looks like 13¼ inches is about the longest cut that this thing can accommodate. That would be a problem with this 14-inch paper if we were gonna actually be cutting all of this, but since we just got to get it down to fit in this, we're going to be cutting the edges off here first and then cutting the long edge. When you're going to cut it, the important thing is that you line up your edge with this little track here, because that track is where the blade of the cutter actually rides. For the first cut though, I don't actually like trying to line it up because you have so much margin here on the top and bottom that it is actually kind of difficult to see and get it lined up exactly the way it needs to be. So what I like to do is I like to knowingly leave a little bit of the margin there. So that way you can get it close, but then you have so much less that you have to try and line up with just your eyes. And then we'll do that on both sides, and we are ready to try and line this up. So in lining this up, you're gonna have to just eyeball it the best you can. You got the track there. You want that track to line up with the edge of your cut. You need to do that on both the bottom as well as the top. And I have found that it's best for the blade to just kiss the artwork. That way, whenever it's cut, it takes just the tiniest little bit of the color off of the cut edge. So that way you don't have a little bit of leftover white there that's gonna be visible when it's in the case. Sometimes, when you drag the knife across the edge, it won't start cutting right away. It'll grab it and start trying to tear it. And that's annoying. After you spent all the time getting a nice, good, high quality print, and then you use up some of your ink to get that print, and then you go to cut it and it tears instead of cutting. It's very annoying. So what I like to do is I like to bring the knife up a bit so that way it's actually going to be already in the piece, and I'll drop it in and set the blade and then pull it the short direction. And then I'll send it back up into the same cut I just did. So that way we're not dragging it across an edge. We're not risking grabbing anything. And then it can just be pushed the rest of the way through. And there we have our edge cut. So as you can see, I didn't do it quite right. And there's a tiny bit of white visible along the bottom. So try to avoid that because this is near impossible to get to come off. So same thing, try to line it up as best you can, pull the knife down into it, send it the other way, and then bring the knife back so it's already in the cut and drag it the rest of the way through. On the top here, there is no white left over. And now we do the same thing for the ends, drop it in, cut it, pull it back, same track, and then one more time to get the other edge, and we are golden. There is our cut art ready to go into the case. But I told you I would let you see both the photo paper and the plain paper. I'm gonna set it down and let you try and guess and let you see if you can guess which one's which. And now if you couldn't tell, just from looking at it, the bottom one here is the plain paper and the top one here is the semi-gloss photo paper. It's subtle enough that you might not care because the plain paper is significantly cheaper than the photo paper, but all the colors are just a bit more pronounced on the photo paper than on the plain paper. If you don't see them right next to each other, you'd be able to tell, but it's nowhere near enough of a difference that you might care about it. And if you don't care about it, then don't worry about it. Just use the plain paper it's a lot cheaper. I think the visual difference is significant enough that to me, it's worth it to spend a little bit extra money on the nice paper to get the nice little bit of shine to it, and just have a better presentation on my shelf, even if I'm gonna be the only one really looking at it. And as far as cases go, these are the cases I'm using. I found a seller on eBay who sells these for fairly cheap. If you buy 10 of them, they're like $2.50 a piece, so it's like 25 bucks for 10 of them. But you can get them significantly cheaper if you're willing to buy more of them. So like I bought 100 of these and they were like $1 a piece. As you can see, they are sized for Game Boy Color games, or Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, but they have this notch cut in them. So that way you can drop a Game Boy Advance game in there and it will hold just fine. Also, one thing to note, if you care and are looking for something like that, this case also holds Neo Geo Pocket Color games. It doesn't grip them, so it's gonna slide around vertically, but if it's closed, it doesn't move around, it doesn't just slam about, and it does hold it inside the space. So that's good. It is as easy as you'd expect. It has this little film on the front of it. You just open the case, peel that back, and slide your art inside. Now, one thing that might happen to you, because it's happened to me before, if the art wasn't sized just right, then there's a chance it will be a little slight bit too big for these cases. You can try and fiddle with it, get it pressed in as far to the edges as you can, and that might help. But sometimes it's just a touch too big, and if it is, it will kind of wrinkle and you'll be able to see a ripple in it. It didn't happen here, but you can just go back to the paper cutter and just nick off the edge just ever so slightly on both sides, so that way it keeps the spine centered, and just take a little bit off and that should get rid of it. I've had to do that a couple of times with a couple of the cases I've made, and it's never been enough taken off that I feel like the artwork is ruined. So with your game in the case closes up and you have a very nice box for the game to sit on your shelf. So that is one more done and ready for the shelf. I really do like how these are turning out, and so I'm really excited to start getting even more of them up on my shelf. But yeah, that's the big project I was working on while I was recovering from my surgery. But I think that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm happy to be back, and I'm looking forward to bringing you even more videos just like this one as the days go on. If you liked the video, make sure to hit that like button, and if you like what I do here, then hit subscribe, because that does help me out a lot. Once more, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one, y'all.